Hi, my name is Luna, and before I say anything else, I want you to know this story isn't just about dresses, makeup, or fashion. It's about identity. It's about fear. It's about the quiet war so many of us fight inside ourselves just to feel like we belong. If you've ever looked in the mirror and felt like a stranger, if you've ever hidden a part of yourself because you thought the world wouldn't understand, then this story is for you. I was born Liam, the boy everyone expected me to be. I played cricket, wore jeans, laughed at the right jokes, and nodded along when people talked about manhood, like it was a badge I was supposed to earn. But deep down, I felt like I was living someone else's life. I didn't have the words for it then. I just knew that when I saw my sister twirling in her lehenga, or watched my mom apply lipstick before leaving for work, something inside me stirred. Not envy, not attraction, something deeper, something that whispered, that could be you. I ignored that voice for years. I buried it under schoolwork, sports, and silence, but it never left. It waited patiently until one night when I was 17, home alone, and curious enough to open my sister's closet. I remember the moment so clearly. The room was quiet. The air felt heavy. I reached out and touched a soft floral dress. My hands trembled. My heart raced. I locked the door, closed the curtains, and slowly slipped into it. And then everything changed. I looked in the mirror and saw someone I didn't recognize, but someone who felt real. For the first time, I wasn't pretending. I wasn't performing. I was Luna. And I cried. Not because I was ashamed, but because I felt seen. It was overwhelming, beautiful, terrifying. That night, I didn't sleep. I just sat there, wrapped in that dress, wondering what this meant. Was I broken? Was I wrong? Or had I finally found the missing piece? The days that followed were confusing. I tried to forget. I told myself it was just a phase. But Luna kept showing up. In dreams, in thoughts, in quiet moments when I was alone. I started dressing more often, always in secret. I learned how to apply eyeliner, how to walk in heels, how to soften my voice. I created a version of myself that felt honest, even if the world never saw her. But secrets are heavy, and mine started to crush me. I remember the first time someone found out. It was my best friend, Arav. He saw a photo I'd accidentally left open on my phone. Me, in a red dress, smiling. I froze. I expected him to laugh, to walk away, to tell everyone. But he didn't. He looked at me and said, "You look happy." That moment changed everything. It was the first time Luna wasn't just mine. She was real to someone else, and she was accepted. From there, I started opening up, slowly, carefully. I told my sister. She cried. Then she hugged me. I told my therapist. She said, "You're safe here." I told my parents. That was harder. My mom didn't understand. My dad didn't speak for days. But eventually, they came around. Not perfectly, not completely, but enough to say, "We love you." I began sharing my story online. At first, anonymously. Then, as Luna. I posted photos, wrote blogs, answered questions. And something incredible happened. People started reaching out. Strangers, friends, even people from my own city. They said, "I feel the same. I thought I was alone. You gave me courage." I realized Luna wasn't just my truth. She was a mirror for others who were still hiding. Today, I live as Luna, not just in secret, not just at night, but fully, proudly, I wear dresses because they make me feel alive. I wear makeup because it reflects who I am. You know, when I first shared my story, I thought that would be the hardest part, just saying it out loud. But what I didn't realize was that the real journey begins after the truth is spoken. Once you let the world see you, you can't go back to hiding. And honestly, I didn't want to. After I came out to my sister and she embraced me with such warmth, I felt like I could breathe for the first time. But breathing freely doesn't mean the air is always kind. The first time I stepped outside as Luna, fully dressed, makeup done, heels clicking against the pavement, I felt like every eye was on me. Some people smiled, some stared. One man laughed. And I'll be honest, I almost turned around and ran back home. But I didn't. I kept walking. Not because I wasn't scared, but because I was tired of letting fear decide who I got to be. That day changed me. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't perfect, but it was real. And real, I started going out more often, sometimes just for a walk, sometimes to a cafe. I'd sit there sipping chai, pretending to read, while secretly watching people's reactions. Most didn't care. A few did. And every time someone looked at me with curiosity or confusion, I reminded myself, they're seeing Luna, and that means Luna exists. I began documenting my journey online. At first, anonymously. I posted photos, wrote little diary entries, shared my thoughts. I didn't expect anyone to read them, but they did. And then the messages started coming in from strangers, from people like me, from people who were still hiding. They said things like, I thought I was alone, or you gave me courage. And I cried because for so long I thought Luna was just a secret, but she was a spark, and she was lighting fires in places I'd never imagined. Dot dot. But not everything was easy. There were days I felt exhausted, days I questioned myself, days I wished I could just be normal, whatever that means. I lost a few friends, faced judgment, got called names, but I also found new friends, real ones, people who saw me, not just the clothes or the makeup, but the soul underneath. One of those people was Naya. She was kind, curious, and unapologetically herself. We met at a bookstore. She complimented my earrings, and I complimented her confidence. We talked for hours. She asked questions, but never made me feel like I was on trial. She listened, and over time, she became my safe space, my mirror, my anchor. With her, I didn't have to explain Luna. She just understood, and that's when I realized something powerful. Luna wasn't just a version of me. She was me. She always had been. I wasn't switching between identities. I was shedding layers. I was becoming whole. So if you're listening to this, and you're still hiding, still afraid, still unsure, I want you to know it's okay. You don't have to rush. You don't have to be loud. You just have to be honest with yourself, with one person, with the mirror. That's where it starts. This is Luna, and this is my next chapter. I'm not done. I'm just getting started. I used to think that being seen was the scariest thing in the world, that if I stepped into the light, people would tear me apart. But what I've learned is this: being seen isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning of power. It started with a message. A local LGBTQ+ group reached out after reading my blog. They were organizing a community event. Small, intimate, nothing fancy. They asked if I'd be willing to speak. Just 5 minutes. Just my story. I stared at the message for hours. I typed yes, then deleted it, then typed it again, And finally, I hit send. The night of the event, I was shaken. I wore a simple black dress, the one that made me feel grounded. My makeup was subtle, my heels low. I didn't want to stand out. I just wanted to survive. As I waited backstage, I kept thinking, what if they laugh? What if they walk out? What if I forget everything? But then I heard my name. Please welcome Luna. I walked out. The lights were warm. The room was quiet. And for a moment, I forgot how to breathe. But then I saw them, faces looking up, not with judgment, but with curiosity, with kindness. And I spoke. I told them about Liam, about the dress, about the mirror, about the tears. I told them about hiding, about fear, about the first time someone said, "You look happy." I told them about Neha, about acceptance, about the moment I realized Luna wasn't a secret. She was a truth. And when I finished, there was silence, then applause, then hugs. People came up to me with tears in their eyes. One person said, "I've never heard someone say what I've been feeling my whole life." Another whispered, "You gave me permission to exist." I went home that night and cried, not because I was hurt, but because I was whole. That speech changed everything. I started getting invited to more events, schools, panels, podcasts. I wasn't just Luna, I was a voice. And every time I spoke, I felt stronger. Not because I had all the answers, but because I was finally asking the right questions. What does it mean to be yourself in a world that wants you to conform? What does it mean to wear a dress when people expect you to wear armor? What does it mean to love yourself when you've been taught to hide? I don't pretend to be fearless. I still get nervous. I still have days where I want to disappear. But I've learned that courage isn't loud. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's just showing up. So if you're listening to this and you're wondering if your story matters, let me tell you, it does. Your voice matters. Your truth matters. You matter. This is Luna, and this is the voice I never knew I had. You know, people often think that once you come out, once you embrace who you are, the hardest part is over. But that's not true. Sometimes the hardest part is what comes after. The quiet moments when the world pushes back and you have to decide whether to stand your ground or shrink again. It happened on a Tuesday. I remember because it was raining and I'd just finished speaking at a local college. The talk had gone well. Students clapped, a few came up to thank me, and I felt proud. Like Luna was finally being seen, not just as a crossdresser, but as a person with something to say. I was glowing. Then I got home and checked my inbox. There it was, a message from someone I used to know, a guy I went to school with. We weren't close, but we'd shared classes, jokes, memories. His message was short, cruel. "You're disgusting. You used to be normal. What happened to you?" I stared at it for a long time. I didn't cry. I didn't reply. I just sat there, feeling like someone had reached into my chest and pulled out all the light I'd been carrying. It wasn't just the words. It was the reminder that no matter how far I'd come, there were still... I didn't sleep that night. I kept replaying the message in my head, wondering if maybe he was right, maybe I had changed, maybe I wasn't normal, maybe I'd gone too far. But then, around 3 a.m., I opened my journal, the one I'd kept since the beginning. I flipped through the pages, photos, letters, scribbled thoughts, and I found something I'd written months ago after my first public outing. "You are not a mistake. You're a mosaic of courage, stitched together by every time you chose truth over fear. I read it again and again, and slowly the light came back. That message didn't break me. It reminded me why I speak, why I share, why I show up. Because for every person who tries to tear me down, there are 10 who are still hiding, still afraid, still waiting for someone to say, "You're allowed to exist." So I kept going. I gave more talks. I posted more stories. I wore my dresses with pride. Not because I needed approval, but because Luna deserves to be seen. And if you're listening to this, and someone has tried to make you feel small, unwanted, or ashamed, remember this. Their words are not your truth. You are not here to fit into their comfort. You are here to live. This is Luna. And this is the part of the story where I stopped apologizing. So here we are, the end of the story. Or maybe just the beginning of a new one. If you've stayed with me through all of this, from Liam to Luna, from silence to voice, from hiding to healing, I want to say something simple but true. Thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for holding space for my truth. And thank you for letting me be seen. This journey hasn't been easy. There were nights I didn't think I'd make it, days I wanted to disappear, moments I questioned everything. But through it all, Luna kept showing up, not as a costume, not as a phase, but as the most honest version of me. I've learned that identity isn't something you find once and hold forever. It's something you grow into, something you nurture, something you fight for. And every time I put on a dress, every time I speak my truth, every time I choose love over fear, I become Luna all over again. I don't know what tomorrow holds, maybe more challenges, maybe more joy. But I do know this. I'll keep showing up. I'll keep sharing. I'll keep living loud. Because someone out there is still waiting to hear that they're not alone. And if my story can be that light for even one person, then it's worth everything. So if this story moved you, if it made you think, if it made you feel, please consider subscribing to my channel, Luna's Truth. It's where I share not just my journey, but yours too. Stories, reflections, interviews, and moments that remind us we're all beautifully complex and worthy of love. Hit that subscribe button, leave a comment, share your truth. Let's build a space where no one has to hide anymore. This is Luna, and this is my truth. Thank you for being part of it.